You mentioned earlier China's discussion, consideration of providing weapons to Russia for the Ukraine war. Where do you think they are in that decision calculus? Do you see any evidence that they've actually begun inexorable actions to send those weapons? And if they do, if we do have that evidence, what should we do about it?
Yeah, well, look, I I I think I think this current situation is troubling. I'm not optimistic, to be honest. I commend President Biden for taking the step a year ago. You remember that it was a year ago that the U.S. discovered that Beijing was preparing to provide weapons, lethal support to Russia. Our national security advisor Jake Sullivan flew to Rome to meet with one of his counterparts, Chinese counterparts, to warn them that this would result in U.S. sanctions. President Biden followed up with a video call, a lengthy video call to Xi Jinping to warn him as well. And I think we had some cabinet secretaries, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, also warning that there would be substantial U.S. sanctions applied to China in ways that would be even systemic, perhaps targeting banks, Chinese commercial banks, and so forth. It sounds to me like we had a year of quiet. We bought a year of uh, of uh, uh, of Beijing restraint on this front through those efforts. But now that the U.S. has made public that it has information that Beijing is very seriously contemplating resuming that original plan to provide lethal support to this war in Europe, I think is a very bad sign. I think it means that Beijing is really looking to see whether it can find ways, covert ways to move all of that equipment that Russia needs, into that conflict. Why is Beijing doing this? I think that Xi Jinping's original hope was probably very much aligned with Putin's, and that would have been for a very rapid victory by Russia over Ukraine. Failing that, I think that Beijing may believe that it has an interest in prolonging the war as long as possible to drain Western attention, NATO attention, to drain treasure and stockpiles of weapons as long as possible to create a more favorable strategic uh, uh, situation in the Western Pacific, including around Taiwan. So, what should we do? I think that it will be incumbent upon President Biden to hold to and enforce the red line that he has clearly painted, publicly painted in that call that he made a year ago to Xi Jinping. That means that we would have to pursue some form of not just pinprick sanctions against a few obscure companies, but systemic ones designed to impose grave punishment on Beijing for trying to get involved in a war in Europe. This is totally unacceptable, and I think that the Biden administration is going to have to follow through on the red line that it painted here. That will require systemic sanctions if it comes to it.